just had to adjust quickly. Thank God my equipment is plugged into a surge protector. Thank God for Troy, who always tells me what I need to do. So if you're just joining me live, you're missing quite a riveting conversation because I have on the line with me Felicia Roche, who is the author of a book called Unravel. Um, and so Felicia and I are having a riveting conversation. So if you've missed it, any part of it, let me go back and tell you. Felicia and I met some years ago when I was having a conversation about social justice with Chris Norris. And she asked me then if she could talk to me. We met at I think it was a coffee shop downtown because she was working downtown at the time. And she asked me then if I could be her mentor. What I did not know in the process of Felicia asking me to be her mentor was that she was fighting an illness, a mental illness that allowed her to have a dissociative disorder. So the second meeting that we had, which was in a Dunkin' Donuts in Abington, when I sat down to have my coffee and have a conversation with her, one of her personalities popped up and started talking to me. Like started talking to me and told me that they were not going to allow me to hurt Felicia, and who was I and what did I want with her. And I said, well, who are you? And they told me their name. I cannot remember their name now for the life of me. And I said, well, I'm not talking to you. I want Felicia to come back because that is who I am talking to. And the person said, well, we don't want you to hurt her. I said, I'm not here to hurt Felicia. I'm here to make sure she's okay. And that is how my relationship started with Felicia Roche. And instead of running away from her, because of what I experienced. I wasn't afraid, first of all, let me just tell you. I was not afraid. But instead of running away from her, I knew that it was at that point, up to that point of my life, I had been seeing I would be what people would call someone who sees. And so I would use it to my advantage because the minute someone stands in front of me, within 15 to 20 seconds, I can tell who you are as a person. I will remain calm. I will talk to you. I will treat you well. But you better believe that I see you. Right? And it is a gift from God for me. And I treated it as a trite thing until the day I met Felicia and one of her dissociative personalities popped up and started talking to me. So Felicia and I have been having now a conversation around what that looks like, what has that has led to her writing this book. When Uncle Bobby's opened, shortly after Uncle Bobby's opened, Felicia came to me and says, you know, she vacillates between calling me mom, mother, you know, Andrea. And she said, I want to write this book called, she didn't know what the book was going to be called. She said, I just want to write my story. And she said, do you think I can do it? I said, not only do I think you can do it, it is so riveting. The parts of her story that I knew then doesn't even compare to what's in the book. I thought I was going to pass out reading this book. The amount of trauma that Felicia went through to get to this place where she is in her life, it is not only a book worth reading, it is going to be made into a TV, not only a TV movie, it'll be on the big screen at some point. The trauma is unbelievable. And those of us who work with children, those of us who are lawyers, those of us in social work, you know, you want to read this book because it shows you in great detail what children are going through. And we miss all of that in our judgment, in our assumptions, right? And so by the time Felicia and I got together and met and I became her mentor, I knew it was incumbent upon me to be a responsible mentor in the way that she and I dealt with each other. So the conversation now has led up to her sharing with me some of the things that she had gone through to this place, that she was raped at the age of 14 by a 22-year-old man, and she went back into her dark space. That was how she managed the dark space. When things got too hard for her brain, she would just back off. And so according to her daughter, Kayla, when she got into that dark space, she became a different person. There was like a bad energy around her. And I experienced that, except I wasn't afraid of it. And once I had that conversation with that dissociative personality that popped up in front of me, it never came back. So it must have looked at me and said, yeah, she not playing, so I ain't come back. Felicia, are you there?
I am here. It's called love.
It's called listen, and I loved you straight, and it never came back. That personality never came back and presented itself to me ever again after that. Again. And so, you know, your journey, it's hard to speak about this book except to tell people, go get the book. Go get the book. It's going to blow your socks off to the point where you're going to stop judging people. You're going to stop judging children when they show up in your classrooms and they are exhibiting symptoms of things that makes you go, well, what are they doing in their house? Their mother or father must not be doing blah, 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 blah. It is not your place to judge. It is your place to have the heart and the willingness to listen, because I cannot imagine how many adults failed Felicia till she got to the place where she is. Thank God for her sister, who was your sister's only a couple years older than you, right?
Only 3 years old.
She's 3 years older. She was changing Felicia's diapers, making sure Felicia was okay, and she has been the anchor. Her sister Deborah has been Felicia's anchor since the day Felicia was born. It is the most incredible story. Incredible story. And so, you know, Felicia, we're up to the place now where you are coming to Sunday dinners, right? I'm having these Sunday dinners in my home. You're coming to Sunday dinners. You decided you want to write this book. You had a soft launch, and at that soft launch, what happened?
So the soft launch, I presented the idea that I was going to be writing a story and presented some of what was in the book. And I got some feedback from that, and I crumbled and fell apart, and I didn't want to do it anymore.
What was the feedback that made you crumble?
It was the fact that people were, I'm in a different space now. I keep calling it the last leg of my healing journey because I'm in a totally different place now. But hearing people talk about how amazing that is and how they couldn't believe it. They would never have thought, because of the way I present myself now and the way I look and the way I carry myself, that I had been through these things. Just made it that much more real for me that I did experience these things, and this was my life, and everything that is in the book is true, and it's very real. And it comes off, I wrote it in a way that's very artistic because I don't want, of course I'm concerned about other people being triggered. And so I try not to be too vulgar or anything like that. But I also had to tell the truth. Like, I have to. And you said it beautifully, because there are so many children suffering from the same things today. And many adults who have been through the same things who have not been able to tell their story yet. And so that was the main reason why I wanted to do this, but that was a difficult process as well, because I had to go through, it took 2 years for me to get to a place to say that this was on purpose, that God gives us gifts and God gives us assignments, and God wants us to share certain things so that we can help other people, and that it's not about me. And even when you talk about your mentorship and, all the gifts that God gave you, it in turn helped me just so I can in turn help someone else. And so This whole process, at the end of the day, of course I talk about mental illness a lot in the book and trauma and how that presents itself and how that process, but that at the end of the day, the story or the message that I want people to understand is that they don't have to be afraid of who they are. And that's where I was at the time. I was afraid of who I was. I was afraid of the gifts that I had in my story, in my journey. And I just want to help people get to a place where they realize they don't have to be afraid of who they are, that they are loved and they can love themselves and embrace everything about them, including their trauma. I wrote a blog about embracing trauma, and I got a lot of feedback like, I don't know if that's such a good idea. And I'm like, well, let me explain.
Right. And you know what? I usually would get off at this time, but I want you to hold on, because I need to talk to you, too, about what do you do when you see that trauma in other people. There is a young man that I'm watching now that has is similar trauma to what you experienced, except he's not dealing with it the way that you've dealt with it. So, it's the idea of having the conversation, the hard conversations with people. But I want you to hang on, because we have to take another quick station break. We won't do any music, and we'll come right back. And I promise not to keep you longer than about 4 or 5 minutes, and then I'll let you go, okay?
Okay, no problem.
All right. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on wordradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at Unword. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Don't miss the Electric Magazine Show, hosted by Cody Anderson and Vicky Leach. Saturday mornings from 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. Exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. across 3 venues and over 1,900 of the world's most sought-after performers and artists. The Kimmel Center Cultural Campus is a place that fuels creativity, ignites minds, and provides inspiration. Building the city's vibrant art scene takes an extraordinary staff, and the Kimmel Center Cultural Campus has openings now. From internship opportunities to volunteer positions to careers and customer service, marketing, and even behind the scenes. Check out their current list of openings and opportunities at kimmelcenter.org. Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on wordradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on wordradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media.
You're never completely ready to adopt a teen.
For late nights writing English papers.
For your teen's music taste.
For dinners, where they talk more on their phone than with you.
For the first time, they call you Mom.
You're never completely ready to adopt a teen, and you can't imagine the reward.
To learn more about adopting a teen, visit adoptuskids.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at On Word or on Facebook at Forward. Word TV. Black Talk Media.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on wordradio.com and the Word Radio app.
Step right up. See the sun show in town for only 50 cents.
Step right up. Hurry, hurry, before the show begins. My friends, stand in line, get your tickets. I hope you will attend. It'll only cost you 50 cents to see what life has done to those like you and me. See the man with the broken heart, you'll see that he is sad. He hurts so bad, so bad, so bad. See the girl who has lost the only love she ever had. There's got to be no sadder show to see. No doubt about it, satisfaction's guaranteed. So let the sideshow begin. Hurry, hurry, step right on in. Can't afford to pass it by. Guaranteed to make you cry. Let the sideshow begin. Hurry, hurry, step right on in. Can't afford to pass it by. Guaranteed to make you cry. See the man who's been crying.
Welcome back to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM. I just need you all to know I choose my own music list. I'm telling you, and Troy is pretty diggity dang good too, so he'll throw a thing in there or two with it. But music fills my soul, and even when we're here on The Source and we're talking to you, music is a part of how I reach you, right? We can reach people through all sorts of different ways, and for me, because music is seeped into me, I try to give you a variety of what, you know, I listen to every single day, sans my father, right, who's taught me a lot of this stuff. So we're back, and if you have just, if you're just joining us, please understand that we started the show at 1 o'clock with Dr. Ayla Stanford, and it's so funny. At the beginning of the show, I said, listen, we're getting ready to have a thunderstorm. I need you all to hunker down in these Wakanda streets. and then boom, the electricity went out in my house, and they had to call me from the studios, and I had to adjust. And thank God I carry around an external backpack, battery pack, that could continue to charge my phone while I was talking, even though the service was a little spotty. I wasn't able to lose contact with the word listeners. So I want to thank you for your patience in coming back. And I'm now back up on Facebook Live if you'd like to go back up there to see what we're doing over there. But we're here. And I talked to Dr. Ayla Stanford, who discussed with us what was going on with COVID-19, that the numbers are getting ready to spike in Philadelphia, even though we are calm right now. They sent a refrigerated trailer to Jefferson Hospital to pick up bodies because they know that we're getting ready to have a spike. We are now considered a hotbed, a hot space. And so Dr. Ayla Stanford also talked about the fact that she and a consortium of African-American doctors got together and decided that they would be able to help dispel the myths in the African-American community if people wanted to call them, this doctors, or write to them, email them, and they'll be able to reach out to you. So it's COVID-19 at realconciergemedicine.com. I will put that in the Facebook Live page, or you can call into the studios and ask Troy, 215-634-8065. That email again is realconcierge, REALCONCIERGE, medicine, MEDICINE.com. So it's COVID-19 at realconciergemedicine.com. And their goal with this consortium of black doctors is to help people in the African-American community, and to, if they call them and they have symptoms and they want help and they're not sure what to do, or they feel that they're having disparate treatment in the medical system, it's a beautiful thing that they came up with. So I'm so grateful to them. Then we had Dr. Rothery, who from the Ladipo group, who spoke to us, and that's when the electricity went out and it was really spotty and we couldn't figure out how to make it work. We did the best we could, but she talked about losing family members because we are now starting to know people very close to us, like one person separated, who are dying from this disease, and it is not a fun thing. And so she talked to us about how we manage the stress as it comes our way, and she said the stress can present itself as COVID-19 symptoms too, headache, not being able to breathe, just cold sweats, that kind of stuff. And so she said that one of the things she's asking people to do is to limit their activities with the news, like limit your exposure to the news so that you don't drive yourself crazy. You'll have muscle tension and aches and pains. She said take your temperature to make sure, because one of the first things that show up when you have COVID-19 is your temperature, it spikes. She said take your temperature to make sure that you are not actually having the virus. And then she gave us some clear clues about what to do. She said breathing is most important. Your body cannot be in a state of tension and relaxation at once. She said practice the serenity, the prayer. God grant me grant me the wisdom to accept the things that I cannot change, to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. She said something simple as getting out of your bed every morning and taking a shower, even making your bed. And that resonated with me because I got in here and cleaned up my office and put up everything on the wall. And there's a painting behind me that was dropped off at my door today that is so beautiful. Just as the show is ending, I'm going to show it to you. A young lady in Abington had her husband drop it at my door. You all have been extremely kind to me. Food has been dropped off at the door. Paintings have been dropped off at the door. Masks have been dropped off at the door. And none of this cost my husband and I anything. You have just all been so kind. And so I want to thank you, as I am trying to help the wider WURD listening audience. You all are supporting me too, and my husband. So we want to thank you. We now have on the line Felicia Roche, who has been with us since 2 o'clock. And if you missed that conversation, Felicia wrote a book called Unravel. The reason why I'm having this conversation, such a long conversation with Felicia, is that her story is one that I don't think most people have ever discussed, and that she was so traumatized as a child that she developed at least 3 different alternative personalities, one of who introduced itself to me when we had our second meeting after she asked me to be her mentor. And so that conversation now is what we're having, and she's talking about some of the trauma that she has gone through. I can't even begin to tell you all the trauma. I read this book overnight. I started reading it when it was dropped off at my door, and I read it until 8 o'clock the next morning, and I was I vacillated between crying and joy. And I was reading one scene where she was running back to go get her child, and I was running with her. The book is so well written, As she was running, I was running with her. As I'm reading and I'm running, and my heart started palpitating. And I was like, oh my gosh, this book is so well done. And so I ended up writing a review for it because I do believe this book will end up on the large screen somewhere. Felicia was incredibly brave in putting out her story, you know, because she knows that once this is out here in the whole world, I knew a good piece of it. I didn't know all of it. So she knows that it's very brave putting out this story, because when you look at her and the way she presents herself, it's not what she was dealing with. She was dealing with a lot of darkness. She was walking around talking to people, and probably wasn't Felicia talking to you, right? Because there was so much going on. Felicia, are you there?
I'm here.
Girl, listen, Marva had to just bring everybody up to speed in these Wakandan streets.
Yeah,
And so just so that you all know, Felicia is absolutely near and dear to my heart. And so when the book came, when the book was ready, she dropped it off at my door. And that's how I ended up having an advanced copy. The first set of copies will be, I think you can get it on Amazon now, in the ebook. But the first physical copies you won't see. She's unveiling all of it on this Saturday, April 11th. And I wanted to introduce the word audience to her to show you, because we always say that trauma looks like homelessness. Trauma looks like people not combing their hair and walking around screaming at everybody in the street, you know, throwing things, looking unkempt. People see trauma like that. They can identify trauma in that way. But trauma, my dears, looks like Felicia. Felicia Roche is amazingly gorgeous and looks like Vanessa Williams, and is calm and sweet and quiet and would talk to people as if nothing was going on. Only those who were at the closest to her understood when she was going into her darkest spaces. And she says quite openly that she has had suicide ideations almost every day, if not every day, for a long time. All right? And so, yep. Felicia, reintroduce yourself to the people. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ho.
You have done an amazing job at describing everything. I don't know if there's much more for me to say, but I will say that the last thing you said is very is so true about not knowing what people are going through. We hear people say that all the time. But I think one of the reasons why, and I think you described it before, is me being a tortured soul. And I honestly feel like for a long time I was a tortured soul, was because, one, because I did go into the dark a lot, where other personalities were coming up to protect me and to represent for me. So people wouldn't see the pain for that reason, I'm assuming. And then the other thing being that I wasn't being honest. I wasn't facing my trauma, and I wasn't facing my pain. And so all of the darkness I was living in and all the torture I was going through every single day, with whether I live or not, was done in secret and hiding. And it becomes more, it's just more torture every day, because you're not being honest. You're not telling your story. You're not opening up. And so I think it is important for us to understand that. And in certain parts of my life, it did come out in behaviors. And so, like you said, you know, when we're judging people for their behaviors, I engaged in a lot of risky behavior. And people didn't know where that was coming from. And then the other part of that is that sometimes people present as everything is fine. Right. And they may disappear for a while. You don't know what's going on with them. And so it's so complex when people experience trauma, and nobody experiences it the same. No one presents it the same. But there are signs that you can look for. And it is important that we embrace our trauma and be honest about the things that we experience. More so for any other reason. You know this about me. I did it for Kayla. Like when I couldn't do it for myself, I did it for my kid, and it ended up being the thing that is breaking a generational curse. It's breaking generational trauma, because in the book, I also talk about the trauma my parents experienced that was passed down to me. Right. And so it's all of that. That's the whole point of the book, is to describe how trauma presents itself and what we can do to break the cycle.
Right. You wrote eloquently. I knew the story about your father coming from Cuba and your mother coming from Haiti. You wrote their stories beautifully, and you also gave us quite a glimpse into why they were the people that they were as parents for you and your sisters and your other siblings, right? Correct. Talk to the listening audience a little bit about Kayla. I love my Kayla bear. Kayla makes me pumpkin muffins. In order for Kayla to come into our house for Sunday dinner, she's one of the youngest people that comes into our house on Sundays. She has her entrance is she has to have pumpkin muffins for Mother. They're tiny. You know, I'm diabetic, so she makes them in these little tiny balls so that I can eat a little bit of it and not have to worry about it. But Kayla is such a calming soul and presence. How in the world did you manage to raise Kayla in the middle of having a dissociative disorder, in the middle of trying to commit suicide several times, in the middle of having suicidal ideations all the time? How did you manage that?
God. God. I say that because I know Kayla was a gift. Kayla is 100% a gift. I'm very fortunate to have had the child that I had because she's a sweet spirit. And that sweet, calming spirit is what really helped me get through a lot of what I've been through. Somehow through resiliency and, again, a support system like my sister and others who've been there along the way, and the book talks about others who have been there. And I write that because it's important for people to understand how important they can be to other people, right? Like, I'm only here because of my support system. Yes, I found strength in myself, and I have resiliency, but the importance of those who come along on our journey is so important. And I want people to read that, understand that there are people around them right now that are hurting, that needs them, and how important that's a life or death thing. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book as well. But Kayla, she's just the sweetest spirit. And I know people talk about their own kids all the time as if, they're the greatest thing on earth. But I honestly, I know it wasn't something I did specifically. I just really am blessed and fortunate to have had such a sweet spirit in my life. And that is the thing that has kept me on earth. Honestly, I really, truly believe that that's the thing that has kept me on earth. Because even with the times where I was disconnected to myself and tried to hurt myself, that's the thing that kept bringing me back. And when it was time to try again, I had to remember that it was bigger than me. There is a whole other generation coming behind us. There are stories that have to be told. And we look at it just as a community. If you look at our story, our trauma as Black people in America, we have to remember that the things we do from day to day are going to be the things that last for generations. And so what does that responsibility look like? What do we do with that responsibility? And that's the decision that we have to make a conscious decision to want better for our kids and for the generations to come.
So this conversation was also incredibly important to me from this point of view. African Americans in this country have been traumatized for generations. We've literally just hit the 400th year mark from being in, God, my brain just froze, from being in slavery, from it being enslaved. And we have not quite come out of a lot of what has happened to us. And it shows up, it exhibits itself in the way we carry ourselves, in the way we behave, in the way we ignore the traumas, I heard someone say this, Eric Grimes, the other day when I was in a meeting, and I said it was so true. He said, when people can stay home for a cold or a sneeze, or Black people were told you had to go into work, you had to show up. We are traumatized in ways that goes beyond the pale. And when we try to talk about it, we are dismissed and said, well, you're not the only one that are going through it and you have to deal with it. Nowhere in our history have we been codified so that we can find a space to deal with the traumas as they're coming our way. And so it's trauma building up on top of trauma. And when we see each other out on the street, I laugh when I see this, not in a giggly, funny kind of way, but when I see a leader who is, all caught up in themselves, I need to be seen. You need to take a picture of me. I need to be heard everywhere I go. My ego is so big that I need to be heard and seen wherever I go. That's trauma. That is their trauma coming out from something that happened to them in their past, right? And so it manifests itself in these unhealthy ways. And so I tell people all the time, do your work. You will hear me say this a million times. I don't care how you do your work. I don't care if you write it out, if you scream it out, if you can go to therapy, if you write a letter and burn the letter, if you can talk to the people who created the trauma like you did, Felicia. You were able to go back and have those conversations. And those were hard conversations to have with your parents, right? To go and have those hard conversations, to start to work on yourself every day. Affirm This is what's going on with me. This is where I am. This is where I would like to be. Write your journey out. Don't sit steeped in it with the destructive behaviors. Because Felicia, when you read the book, you will see all the destructive behaviors that she went through. But somewhere in the corner, in the recesses of her mind, she knew to find certain people that would help her on her journey so that she wouldn't completely give up and commit suicide while her daughter was sitting there. It was a lot. And so tell folks now, Felicia, I know your sister Deborah was just, I'm going to interview Deborah at some point if it's a conversation that she'd like to have, because Deborah was instrumental in keeping you here once you got here. You were not a mistake. But once you got here, Deborah was instrumental in keeping you here on this earth, and she was your ride or die. She still is your ride or die, right?
Mm-hmm.
Up to this place. Talk to us about what it means to be for mentorship in a way that is life-saving and not just, you know, I'm going to talk to you every once in a while and I'm going to judge you in a place where you just can't get yourself together. Talk to folks about what that looks like for you particularly.
I think you mentioned it just now, the safe space. I think we use the term loosely, safe space, because when you are living in darkness and trying to face your trauma, because that's the living through the trauma and surviving it is one thing, but then when it comes time to face it and really deal with the realness of your pain and your victimization, because that's, you know, a lot of us, what you mentioned about just what we as Black people go through, we don't want to be victims, but we are victims of a lot of things, of a lot of trauma, and we carry that victimization with us until it drives us to a place where we're not even in control of our lives anymore. And instead of gaining control to say, I no longer want to be a victim, so I'm going to do something about it and become a survivor, that's a process that has to happen by being honest about what you're going through. There's only a few spaces that can happen in. It can't happen in everyday life. It can't happen as you go back and forth to school. It can't happen while you're working because you have to put food on the table. It has to happen in very intentional spaces. So you have to have therapy, or you have to have a safe space, whether it's something like what you offer, which is the Sunday dinners, where it is a safe space, or you have a support system where you can be honest about how you're feeling, about what you're going through, those dark thoughts. I've had mentees come to me and at some point realize that they could be honest about their dark thoughts. It took a while, but once they heard my story, they realized, oh, so when I thought about killing this person, or I thought about killing myself, or when I'm, you know, dazed out and find myself in a place I don't even know how I got there. These are secrets that their families don't even know. But they found a safe space that they could be honest about it. Once they started that process, it only led to more healing. It led to more self-discovery and self-actualization. And without you even realizing what's happening, you're healing. It happens just that automatic. The psyche is very intricate and very interesting, but it works a specific way. And that's how the psychic, and that's how we know therapy works, and that's the reason why it works. And so we have to get to a place where we have to start being kinder to each other. I think during this pandemic is a really, we're all struggling, right? But there's a space to look inward, and of course we want people to do it in a safe way, because I don't want anyone to be triggered. But at the same time, if you can find a way to be kinder to yourself and loving to yourself and tell yourself you deserve these tears, you deserve the space to cry or to fall apart or to have that hard conversation with a family member that might have hurt you, and know that you're doing it to better yourself and to feel better about you, now is a good time to do it, because we have to be honest with our friends and family right now, because they're in our face all the time during this pandemic. So I think the whole point, though, is to find healing, to deal with yourself, like you said, to do the work so that you won't be passing it down or passing it on to someone else. Because hurt people hurt people.
Absolutely. Felicia Roche, goes without saying that I adore you. Even if I had only just met you, I would have still been kind and wonderful to you. But I now have a 6-year relationship as your mentor. And so I understand more than most what this book means to you and what it meant for your having to write it. The book is called Unravel. It is being released on Saturday, April 11th. How would people be able to reach you?
So on Instagram and Twitter, it's The Roche Post, TheRoche, Post, the Roche Post. I'm doing my launch is going to be live. So I'm doing a Facebook. You can reach me on Facebook by my name, Felicia Roche. But I'll be doing a Facebook and Instagram Live, and I'll also be doing a Zoom party at the same time. So all that.
Yes, and these were content streets. That's what I'm talking about. I can't wait. Mama's waiting for her Zoom invite because I need to be on live. And listen, thank you so much, my love. Huh?
I said it's coming, and that's Saturday at 7 o'clock. That's
Saturday at 7 o'clock. Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Felicia Roche. She wrote a book called Unravel. It's being released on April 11th, which is this upcoming Saturday. She'll be doing a Facebook Live launch. I can't wait for you all to see this. And I did read a part of the prologue for you all that was riveting. If you missed that, oh my Lord, 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 Lord. I want you to walk in peace, my darling. And I will see you soon. And just know your life is getting ready to change in exponential ways, okay?
Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, honey. Talk to you soon. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on wordradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at Unword. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. 215-634-8065 is the number to call, and I know this was a riveting conversation for many of you who are just joining and listening. You can rewatch it on Facebook Live, but we're getting ready to go to a station break. We'll be right back after these messages.
The Word Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on Word Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the Word Radio newsletter.
The City of Philadelphia brings you the following updates. The IRS has extended the deadline to file and pay taxes. The new deadline is July 15th. The Department of Revenue has extended the deadline to pay commercial and residential property taxes to April 30th. There are several grants and loans available to support small businesses and preserve jobs impacted by COVID-19. For additional updates from the City of Philadelphia, visit phila.gov.
Listen live at wordradio.com.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at On Word or on Facebook at Forward. Word TV. Black Talk Media.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on wordradio.com and the Word Radio app.
Wondering what That's how it must be to live without you. Would only be heartbreak for me. Oh, nobody but me. My darling, believe me. Believe me. For me, there is no one but you. Please love me true. This is my prayer. Answer my prayer now, baby. Answer my prayer. This is my prayer. Answer my prayer. Answer it right now, baby. Answer my prayer. Say you love me too. Answer my prayer. This is my prayer, baby. Answer my prayer.
Welcome back to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on wordradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at Unword. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and I am your host for The Source on Tuesdays and Thursdays, honey. You all make this job so easy. So before we go to the next guest, which is Kitty Dior, Nee James on Facebook Live is asking, how do they know Philly and other inner cities will be the next hotbed? What are we doing different than other areas? So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to answer this for you, Nigeria, in the way that my 24-year-old son said it. Smart as all get out. He says, Mom, it would make sense that New York became a hotbed. There's 9 million of us living here, and we're on top of each other. He said, and then on top of that, you know, the underlying health issues that we have, like diabetes, hypertension, not being able to go to the doctor when we want to, we then become attractive to a virus like the COVID-19. And so when we're telling people in these cities, and he said it to me too, this was on Sunday, he said, I guarantee you New Jersey and Philadelphia are next on the list because people are traveling between these states, right? And in fact, quite a few people, when New York became hot and people started dying, lots of folks got their family and brought them out of New York and brought them right here into Pennsylvania. Even if your family member is asymptomatic, you can carry the virus. And so Philadelphia now, we're starting to see the numbers rise, Nigeria. And so that's what we're looking at. And so based on the projection of what they've seen in New York City, and there's certain key elements that they're looking for, and they're seeing it in Philadelphia. So the governor has been trying, the mayor of the city has been trying to get people to stay home. You're seeing the trans workers, SEPTA, and the police department, and the sanitation department, and the post office workers. Everybody is now starting to realize that this is more of a problem than needs be. The grocery store workers now, according to Dr. Ayla Stanford, state senator, and I'm looking at his face, Lord, from Cheltenham. Woo, 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 woo. I just almost dropped something. I got 50 things going on at one time over here. When I remember his name, because I did write it down, because I know him, Arthur Haywood. State Senator Arthur Haywood said that, Art Haywood said that they're trying to get kits and protective equipment for the people that have to work in the supermarkets and that kind of stuff with the Democratic State Party. So things are starting to shift, but I really believe that it started happening once the virus, the barn door was closed, right? And so right now we're just trying to play catch up as we go along. So when we come on here every Tuesday and Thursday, when we say on WURD radio every single day, stay in your houses, that's what we mean, stay in your houses. The ones who are going to survive this are going to be the ones who are able to stay in as much as possible. When the essential workers have to be out there, if you're not essential, if you want to take a bus ride just to make yourself happy, don't do that. Stay home, right? I got on my bicycle and rode around the block. I didn't go to a park where I was around thousands of people. I rode around the block, round and round and round, till my little legs got tired, right? You want to think of creative things to do without harming or endangering anybody else. While I'm at it, you know, we've been having all these great conversations, but I have to say thank you, not just to the WURD listeners. You know, the earrings that I'm wearing were dropped off at my door last week when I literally crashed and started to cry after I got off the air on Thursday because I was so overwhelmed emotionally by all the stories that I was hearing, the watching of the news. So I had to tell myself, get away from the news, right? And really center myself and go into prayer and start to, you know, meditate. And so these earrings were dropped off at my door. The gloves were dropped off at my door. Masks were dropped off. Fresh food was dropped off at my door, you know. Paintings, two beautiful paintings that I put on my Facebook page later was dropped off at my door. But like Shirley says, the next hotspot, because 100 guys are on the basketball court playing basketball on a warm night. Y'all go inside your houses. Go inside your houses. Stay away from being in places with people that you would get close to them for more than 6 feet at a time. There is a whole written report here about the 10 equity implications of coronavirus and outbreak in the United States, written by the NAACP, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to get to some of it, before I talk to the guests. But I'm just going to give you a brief outline, and it's a great white paper. I'm trying to tell you the things that they talked about that impacted us, right? Frontline workers face tough choices amid differential health and economic risks and impacts. Democracy vehicles are being jeopardized by coronavirus impacts, and there's a whole lot of links. School impacts may include infection outbreaks due to confined spaces. Also, with schools closed, children who rely on free meals may suffer. All the things that we've been talking about for weeks on end, right? Testing kits are lacking, and when they become available, it is unclear how access will be prioritized and for whom, as well as what the implications of diagnosis will be for those who are uninsured. Quarantine policies and practices are unfolding with a risk to human and civil rights, given the unprecedented scale of the outbreak, possibly exacerbated by the historic experiences of marginalized communities with state-sponsored confinement. I'm going to come back and talk about a lot of this, and it may not happen on this show, but on our Tuesday show. But it was the equity implications of the coronavirus outbreak in the United States, the imperative for civil rights advocacy, monitoring, and enforcement, and it was written by the NAACP, a white paper written by the NAACP for our people. And so I'll come back to discussing it. The person that sent this to me, I have an assistant producer behind the producer who is actually helping me. Right now, though, we are going to talk to Kitty Dior. Kitty, are you there?
Yes, how are you?
Oh, listen, thank you for your patience. I had to figure out a way to get you into this conversation today because, I love me some Linda Wallace. And when she reached out and said that you need to impart this information, I wanted to make sure. So, Kitty, you have been working for Power Up
Yes.
since 2017?
Yes.
You
started
joined them
there in June 2017.
in 17, and you've been there ever since.
Yes.
And you're part of a great team at CCP,
Yes.
and you have our instructors, coaches, workshops, boot camps, and more to work with for the small business owners. So your program is for small business owners. I remember talking to you, Kitty, and you offered a plethora of great advice for small business owners. And with all that is happening now with the pandemic, tell us, the word listeners, why you are talking to me right now.
Okay, first of all, I want to make it clear that what we offer is free, and we are targeting small business owners that are on Philadelphia commercial corridors. With this, you're talking about people who are severely impacted by this crisis. Many of them are completely closed, and this is their livelihood. So we're talking about hair salons, barbershops, restaurants, corner stores, service providers that include accountants, auto mechanics, child care centers, home health care workers, doctors, dentists who work privately in private practice, and a whole list of other types of business owners. And they've been shut down. It also impacts the ones that have employees. So some of them are single proprietor businesses. Some of them have employees. And with that, if they're owning their building or paying rent, the costs associated with that are impacting them, as well as possible employee costs. As their other resources that they use for their business, it's like a chain reaction that's going through everything. It's overwhelming, and the conversations I'm having, we've had about 200 graduates already in the program since I've been there, and we have a cohort of graduates in now, and this hit us, it hit everybody, like a big drop kick into what am I going to do next? And with that, with Power Up, again, we offer this training for free. It's via Community College of Philadelphia. And when I was at work last, physically in the office, it was March 12th. And I took off that Friday, and Friday was the day that they decided to close. So we spent about 2 weeks, and I'm talking about the whole college up and down, converting classes to online formats so that we can continue providing the service. So with that, we are opening another class in May. The class is for business owners, and I'm going to reach out especially to people that own restaurants. Some of you are half running. I spoke to one of the people in the cohort now who owns a pizza shop in Mount Airy, and he had to lay off his employees, and he's in there making pizzas for the few hours that he's open now, you know. And when you look at that, people in hair salons and barbershops are completely closed. The joke now is that you won't recognize people you know because they're going to look jacked up. No.
Ooh, Kitty, let me tell you.
Yeah, and actually, I have to say, I've seen some friends. I drove to see a friend, and I left something for her, and I rode up with a scarf on and a mask on, and she peeked out the window. I left this bag on her door, and she was like, "Who are you?" It's me, Kitty. Known you for all my life, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you know. So this is the situation we're in. But also, I have a friend that's a dentist, and he's now still working, but they're doing telemedicine, you know, this whole online medication. He's not permitted to touch anyone. So if your tooth cracks right now, I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to have to tell you, I don't know, put your cell phone in your mouth and let me see what it looks like.
All right, so let me tell you all something. If you're all out here knowing you got soft teeth, and you know you should have gone to the dentist 500 years ago and you didn't go, this is not the time to be eating hard candy or chewing bones. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? You have to practice extreme caution right now because I don't know how much longer we're going to be in these sorts of situations. And I get it, Kitty. Tell us quickly what you have to offer now. So you have these free classes coming up in May. They're going to be online. How do people, you know, what are the classes for? Who are they for? And how long they will run? And how do they reach you to get to those classes?
First, go to our website, www.ccp.edu/powerup. And with that, you will see two types of classes. One that says Store Owner Series, and they are individual 2-hour workshops. There's a whole host of them being added, and they may be things like how to manage applying for certain types of grants that are being offered, or other types of things related to how you manage through this virus. The other series of classes is the boot camp. It's called the Peer-Based Learning Experience, and that one is for established business owners. The application is online. It takes about 20 minutes to do, but after you complete that application, you also have to send in a tax form, a letter of support, and a copy of your Philadelphia business license. Now, we're paid for by the Philadelphia Department of Commerce and voted on by City Council. With that, the 12-week boot camp is limited to people that are within the Philadelphia zip codes, period. If you're in the suburbs, it's not for you. It's also targeted for primarily brick-and-mortar stores, but not limited to that. But you do have to send in the same types of documents and establish yourself as a full-time business. I do have information for people who are in this sort of startup or half working or whatever. I have information for startups as well, but you'll have to email me for that.
All right, hold on one second, Kitty. Let me take a quick station break, and then we'll come back to talking about the startups, okay?
Okay.
You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on wordradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at Unword. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If you want to start your morning with mindfulness, motivation, and inspiration, tune in to Daybreak with me, Helana, here on WURD Radio, Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 a.m. I'm a health and wellness coach with over 15 years experience helping people to transform their lives. On the show, we talk health and wellness 360, from getting your mind right to getting your money right. So let's rise and shine together right here on WURDradio.com, 96.1 FM, 900 on your AM dial on Daybreak every morning.
The game is about to start. Get your face out your phone.
Just a minute. I'm completing the 2020 census.
Why do you care?
Listen, the census will impact how and where public funds will flow in our communities each year. If we're counted, we'll get better funding for our schools, even affordable housing.
Wow. Well, I'm going to complete the census now.
All right, then. Let's take a shot.
Complete the census online, by phone, or by mail. Shape your future. Start here at 2020census.gov. Paid for by U.S. Census Bureau.
Support independent black media and join the Forward movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com.
Always Best Care is a great place to work.
Flexibility, leadership, purpose.
Great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity. Inclusion. Compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at On Word or on Facebook at Forward. Word TV. Black Talk Media.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on WordRadio.com and the Word Radio app.
With his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song.
Yo, this is why Clef, Refugee Cat, Criswell, Little Bass sitting up here on the bass. While I'm on this roast, I got my girl L. One time. Hey yo, L, you know you got the lyrics.
I heard he sang a good song. I heard he had a style. And so I came to see him and listen for a while. And there he was, this young boy, stranger to my eyes, strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with this song, killing me softly with this song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song. I felt all flushed with fever, embarrassed by the crowd. I felt he found my letters and read each one out loud. I prayed that he would finish, but he just kept right on, strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song.
Take you to the bridge.
Welcome back to The Source. I was jamming to El Boogie, was not trying to come back over here, but guess what? I only have a little bit of time left, and if you are just joining us, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I am your host on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 4 p.m. I want to thank you for consistently joining me here. I have quite a good Word WURD listening, following here on social media. I see you all on Facebook Live, and I see you interacting with me, and so I want to thank you. And so if you're just joining us, and Lord have mercy, you missed the whole show. We had Dr. Ayla Stanford, who was our medical correspondent, who was giving us all we needed to know about COVID-19 and the fact that Philadelphia and the surrounding communities, Montgomery and Chester and Bucks County, are becoming the next hotbed, southeast Pennsylvania. It's so bad that they sent a refrigerated truck here to Jefferson Hospital to start collecting bodies. So when we say stay at home, we mean just that, stay at home. We're not saying it to make your lives miserable. We're trying to keep you alive at this particular point in time because the death rate is spiking. In New York alone, yesterday, 891 people died in one day. So we're not saying this to make you feel like we want to put you out and get on your nerves and make you miserable because you can't stand being inside your house. I don't want to be in here either. Trust and believe. And so I understand how you're feeling, but I need you to practice good common sense because what is getting ready to happen is, as Dr. Ayla says, the ones who survived this are going to be the ones who did social distancing and stayed at home. If you are able to work from home like I am, I'm running the radio show from my home office, right? And so if you're able to work at home, count it all joy and stay in your house and, you know, figure out how you're going to manage this. So after we had Dr. Ayla Stanford, we also had Dr. Rothery from the Ladipo group, who was talking to us about how to handle trauma and death and anxiety in the midst of this pandemic and the quarantine that we're in. And after that, we had Felicia Roche, who is a brand new author, wrote a riveting book called Unravel. And it was important for me to talk to Felicia. In fact, I moved people out of the way to put her online today because I read that book in one night, and it was beyond riveting because there were things that I knew about the book because I had been mentoring Felicia for a good 6-7 years now, things that nobody would have known until she exposed it in this book. And so we had a great conversation about the fact that she had dissociative disorder, mental disorder, and so she had been under so much trauma from the time she was born that by the time she was about 5, she started going into that dark place. And so when she asked me to mentor her, one of those personalities popped up and started talking to me on our second conversation. And so that's when I realized that this was not going to be your average mentoring space. And so I had to give her some additional love and guidance and protection while I was learning from her. And I have to say, thank God that I was able to not be afraid in the middle of having that conversation with that personality that popped up, because it was telling me that it wasn't going to allow me to talk to Felicia. And it was brash and it was brazen. And I looked it dead in the eye and said, I'm not talking to you. So it never came back. It never presented itself to me again. So that was great. And either way, and when I did tell Felicia about it, she said, does that mean you're not going to be my mentor anymore? I said, no, in fact, I am going to be your mentor even more now so than ever. And so we've developed a relationship that has gone from mentor-mentee to really mother and daughter. You know, they call me mother, and I spend quite a bit of time with her. So when the book, she asked me, told me she wanted to write the book, and I told her, go ahead, and I supported her through that process. But the end result, what came out of it, blew even my mind, and I knew some of the story. I didn't even know half of it, and so I wanted the word listeners to hear her story and for us to get to the place. The ultimate goal for sharing Felicia's story was that we have to stop judging what we don't know. When we see a child acting out of turn, when we see a child being sexually promiscuous, when we see a child constantly fighting, when we see a child doing things that you wouldn't see in an average, normal, everyday family, instead of judging and dismissing that child, you would need to really step up and support that child. And so that's what came out of that conversation. So I'm really happy that we were able to do that, despite the fact that I lost service and everything went down. We just kept going, right? In Jesus' name. So I now have Kitty Dior on the line, and she's talking about this program at CCP called Power Up. And with the few minutes that we have left, Kitty and I are going to talk about when the classes start. She talked about who was going to be able to apply for the classes. And so now we're back to having the conversation. Kitty, are you there?
I'm still here. And I want to mention quick some advertisers on Word who are graduates of Power Up. Champion Dentistry, Star Fusion, Hakeem's Bookstore, Enterprise Exterminator, and Sweet Treat Huts. All graduates, businesses anywhere from, 5 to 60 years old. Hakeem's Bookstore is a historic black-owned bookstore, the oldest in the country. So I wanted to mention them because because this is for business
Wait a
owners.
minute. Champion Dentistry, Hakeem's Bookstore. Say the others for me, please, quickly.
Star Fusion Restaurant, Enterprise Exterminating, 40 years old, Sweet Treat Huts. I know they advertise on
Yes.
Word.
That's awesome. And so we want to make sure that they continue to be sustainable so that they can continue to advertise on WURD. So with a few minutes.
If you want to see a list of where all the graduates are listed, it's on a website called Shop Philly First that covers all of Philadelphia. And
Shop Philly First?
Shop Philly First, also a graduate of the program. And if you want to apply for the program, you go to www.ccp.edu/powerup. You can email me directly at powerup@ccp.edu, and that's also listed on the website. But yes,
if Linda Wallace, one second, Kitty.
Sure.
Linda, I know you're watching on Facebook Live. Can you put in all this information so that the Word listeners can put it in for me, please? So it's www.ccp.edu/powerup, correct?
Yes, yes.
And to email you, it's powerup at
ccp.edu.
ccp.edu. With the last minute, and we literally have a minute left, what else do you want the people to know?
That this is free. That's the biggest thing.
That it is free.
It's free. Yeah. I mean, this kind of information is not available normally to small business owners. Big business owners have it. We use those same tools, those same strategies to help you grow your business.
Thank you so much, Kitty. It's always a pleasure. The first time you and I had a conversation, we spoke for quite a while on WURD, and I got to meet you in person. Now we're under trying circumstances, but I'd like to invite you to come back to talk to us some more about the Power Up program, especially since it's going to be helping small business owners. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, and you have a good evening. All right, now, listen, we're at the end of another version of The Source with your host. There you go. Thank you, Linda. Linda's putting it up now. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. We're getting ready to go off the air, but I wanted to tell you that this Sunday in the Sunday Sun column, I wrote an article called How We Miss Thee, and it's about the hugs that we've been missing in the middle of this pandemic and what that means to all of us. So I want you to check out the Sunday Sun to read that article when it comes out. We also have now coming up Happy Hour with Sincerely Sarita, another one of my mentees. I'm the luckiest mentor on earth, I'm telling you. But I want you to stay tuned to WURD Radio and to listen to what she has to say for your afternoon listening pleasure. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you.